Hi folks, my name is Philip Zoutendam. I'm an Episcopal priest and I've been serving as the curate at St.Titus Episcopal Church in Durham, North Carolina during pretty much all of the coronavirus pandemic. My time here at St.Titus is wrapping up, so I'm creating this tutorial for using iMovie to edit and produce videos, which is something I've been doing a lot of to use in our online worship services this last year. I use iMovie for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's pretty simple and user-friendly, as is the case with many Apple programs. It helps you create a good, high-quality video without too many frills that make you get bogged down or confused. And another reason I use it is that it comes free and built in new MacBook computers. And it's even available for iPad and iPhone as well, although I recommend using it on a computer for the full capacity. The first thing that you need to do, of course, when you're using iMovie is start up the program. This is the little icon that I have saved in my dock because I use it all the time and I love being able just to find it and click it. You can also use your Finder. You could click that and find it under Applications. Or you can use this new feature in the Mac operating system where you hold down the Command key and the spacebar. It brings up this spotlight search and you can type iMovie. It'll show up right there. You can double click on it and here you go. Now, this brings you to the Projects screen, one of two screens, either Media or Projects. A project in iMovie is just the collection of all the raw materials that you're putting together to create your final product. Once you've finished the project, you can export it. That creates a single video file that you can then share, upload, put on Facebook, etc. Now, you can either duplicate an old project if you have them. We'll do that in a minute, and that's pretty useful if you're doing the same kind of video over and over again, where you have slightly different content that goes in more or less the same place, and you can kind of use a template over and over again. Or you can create a new project, which is what we'll do now. Click Create New. You're going to create a movie. The trailer, I'm not sure how useful that is. I always just click Create New Movie. This brings you to your movie editor, and there are a few things that you'll need to know. This is the editing field here. We'll come back to that in a minute, but that's where you're going to be putting your content, editing it, dragging and dropping, and so on. This is your playback screen over here. And once you get content and you want to see what it's going to look like, you come over here and you press the play button. Or you can use spacebar, which is usually what I use. And here is all the media that you're going to be using to put into your video. Now, I like to arrange all my media for a particular project in the same spot. So here's the way that you do that. You can go over here to the iMovie library. And then what I'm going to do is create a new event. Here's how you create a new event. You're going to come over here, you can click on this and then actually use the two-finger click to create a new event that gives you this option. It automatically gives you the date. I'm going to rename this Easter 6 because that's the content I'll be working with. Now I'm going to click Import Media. I'm going to find the folder that I've created already for myself with all of my raw materials, which is Easter 6. I'm going to hit Command A, which selects everything, and Import Selected. And so now all of the files that I need are over here in this event. I can scroll down. Easter 5 is what I used last week. Now we're in Easter 6. So you can see I've got all this media here. This is the stuff that I'm going to use to create videos for this week. Okay, So now we're ready to start moving materials around and actually editing. And I told you this is the editing pane. It's got three basic levels. This middle level here is where your visual files are going to go. That's either your images or your videos. Underneath it, maybe you can see the little bit of a musical icon here. That's where your music is going to go. And then, or your audio files. It could be speaking files. Any kind of audio is going to go down there. Those are these green files here. And then this top register, that's where your titling goes. We'll come back to that in just a minute. Let's start with the visual files. What I'm doing here is just a basic video. I'm going to have a still image along with the music for a psalm chant. So the first thing I'm going to do is find the file that I want used for the background. And it's just this one here. I know what it looks like, but you can also use this search field here. And I believe I called this blank slide. Indeed, there it is. So now I'm just going to drag that and drop that down here. This tells me it's 4 seconds long. I'm going to need to make it a lot longer than that. So here's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to zoom all the way out. This is your zoom bar right here. All the way out is actually quite a bit. So I'm going to click right here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And I don't know how long the psalm is. I'm just going to guess right now that I need maybe 2 minutes worth of this image in the background. So you can see when I bring my mouse down here, this gives me the option to drag and expand or contract an image. We'll call that trimming. So I'm going to click, I'm going to hold, and I'm going to make this, like I said, about 2 minutes. So I'm going to zoom out again here, and let's see when I get to about 2 minutes. Okay, there's 2 minutes there. And you can see as I drag my cursor back and forth, there's a little bit of movement on that image. If I put my cursor there, I can press play. You can see that it's showing me over time what this will look like. I can also press spacebar. That stops it, starts it again. One of the things you need to know is that anytime you put an image into the main field, iMovie thinks you want to get real fancy with it and use this motion feature that they call the Ken Burns effect. I don't always use that, so to fix that, I go up to this blue crop icon here. You can see that the default is Ken Burns. I click crop to fill. What that does is it just fills up the whole screen with that image. And so now you can see I'm dragging or I'm moving back and forward over time, and that image is just completely still. Now, you want some kind of transition into and out of your movie so that you don't have jarring cuts, jarring start-stop. This is one of the features I love about iMovie is it makes it very easy to transition smoothly into and out of a particular movie file or image. So the first thing I'm going to do is click Backgrounds here. There are a lot of built-in backgrounds you can use. I almost always am using the standard black background. So I can click that, drag it and drop it down here. And I know I need one at the end, so I'm going to drag and drop right there too. I think the standard length is 4 seconds. I usually make that about 2 at the beginning. So again, I'm trimming my clip down here. We'll make it about 2 seconds. And then at the end, I don't know, 3. That's kind of arbitrary. That's just, I'm feeling that out. That's usually what I use. And then you can see if I press spacebar here to play, it starts with the black image, and then it really abruptly comes in. I want that a little bit smoother, so now I'm going to use a transition. Transitions are things that you can drag in anytime you're moving from one view to another. It's got a whole bunch of, really cool things that you can use. These have almost a PowerPoint feel. Some of them are kind of cartoonish. I almost always use one of these first 4. And Even more than that, I'm almost always using either cross dissolve or fade to black. I'm going to use both of those here. I'm going to use the cross dissolve to come into that view, and I'm going to use fade to black to come out of it, since I'm ending with that black background. Now let's see what that looks like. Press spacebar to play. That fades in so well. And let's come here and we'll see what it looks like on the end. And what a nice fade out. Now you can click on this, it'll show you how long it is when you put your mouse over it. If you double click on that, you can extend that or contract it, and then you would just click apply. I think the standard 1 second in or out is pretty good. I'm not going to mess with that here. Now, of course, we need to bring our music in. Right now we're in the transition screen. I need to go back to My Media. This has got me back in my Easter 6 event. Now, it's got just blank slide pulled up because that's what I searched for, so I'm going to X out of that. Now it's got me with all my files, and I know I titled it Psalm. Here it is. Okay, so it's 3 minutes. I know I'll need to expand my still image a little bit, which is fine. But I can just drag this down here, and you see how it fits underneath. One important thing to see is that this attaches onto one of the files. You want it to attach to one of those for various reasons. Not important to get into now. But I see that it's attached there. Now, one of the things that's going to happen is when I move my cursor over the music, it's going to play. So we'll have a little bit of that in the background as I am expanding my image file. I'm just going to bring that in right about there so that it fades out just after the music does. Now, just as with a video file, you can expand or contract an audio file. It's done the same way. Click here, in, out, just like that. One other nice feature with the audio is that you can fade the sound in and out. And that's pretty useful because often there's background noise and you don't want that to come in abruptly and surprise whoever's watching. So you're going to find this little dot right here that gives you the fade function. You just click and drag. You can see it fade in and out. Now I'm going to go back to the beginning. I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to trim this clip a little bit. And then I'm going to fade the audio in. Let's just see what that looks and sounds like. All right, that sounds pretty good coming in. Let's go to the end and see what that sounds like. I like the timing of that. It seems like we're good to go with that. One other thing that I just used that's helpful for you to know is that you can scroll back and forth across time in your video using 2 fingers on the trackpad, and you just move left or right. That's especially useful if you've got a long video file and you need to go back and forth to find whatever you're editing. The last step that we need for this particular video is our title, so that people know what it is they're watching. So I'm going to go up here and find titles. Again, this gives you all sorts of titles with a bunch of different effects. You can see fancy fade-ins. They show up in different parts. Let's see what this one looks like. This one's kind of zooming in. Again, I mostly use a few of the more simple ones, either this gradient black or gradient white. For a still image like this, I'm often going to use the gradient white. So we're dragging and dropping. It's going to show up above the images, and then it gives you your title over here. So this is Psalm 98. I'm just going to type that in, Psalm 98, in the top field, and then I double click to go down to the bottom field. And our cantor, as usual, is our music minister, Susan Stedman. You've got different font options. Futura Medium is Apple's default for whatever reason. I really prefer to keep it simple. I use Helvetica New Bold for the top, and I use Helvetica New Plain for the bottom. And that's what that's going to look like. Now, I want this particular title to cover the whole file. So I'm going to go down here. I'll go down here, click, drag, get all the way to the end. And then let's see what that looks like. It automatically fades in and out. And there we are. So we've seen all three registers of the editor. We've put our image in first in the visual field. We've added music. We've added a title to it. This is a pretty simple video. You may be making a lot of these, I don't know. But that will show you some of the basics. When we want to finalize this video from a project to an actual video file, what we do is we go back to our project screen. That's going to invite us to name this. So I'm just going to name this Psalm 98. Okay? And now here it is. We've got a project. We need to turn it into a video file. So I'm going to click these three dots right here. This gives me a bunch of options. Now I'm going to share the project. And I'm going to create a file. You can do a bunch of different things. I use file for this because I'll be using it in another program. Psalm 98, that's a good title. This gives you some options for quality. Resolution 1080p is kind of standard high def. You can go down a little bit and that'll lower the quality but make it a little bit more internet friendly for slower connections, and it keeps the file size smaller. I generally use this 720p, knowing that our Wi-Fi here in the building can sometimes get a little stressed and that folks watching at home might not have the best connection either. So I'm going to keep it at 720p. I'm going to keep the quality high and compress faster. I don't exactly know what that means, but I'm going to leave that since that's the default. I click Next. Now it's going to ask me where I want this to go. Psalm 98 is definitely what I want it to be titled. Easter 6 is where I want it to go. I'm going to click Save. And now it's going to create this video file. Now, depending on the file size, this can take a little while. A 3-minute video will probably happen pretty quickly, but you have this pie chart more or less up here that tells you the progress. Now, if you're creating an hour-long worship video, I advise you to plug in your computer so that it's not eating up your battery and go do something else because it's going to take a while. It can take an hour or more for a big video file to fully export. And you don't want to be sitting there at your computer, just twiddling your thumbs waiting for that. Again, this one's moving pretty fast, but it'll tell me when it's done. I'll get a little screen at the top that says share successful, and then I've just got a file that's ready to go. So we've created a video from scratch using the Create New Project feature. See, here's my share successful indication letting me know that my file is ready to use. I can close that and know exactly where I'm going to find that. What we're going to do now is duplicate an old project so that we have the old frame and we can put new content in it. Since I'll be making another music video file for a hymn with lyrics, I'm going to find one that I used last week, Christ for the World. I'm going to duplicate that. So again, I'm clicking the three little dots here. I'm going to duplicate this project. It gives me the duplicate up here, Christ for the World 1, but we're actually going to make O for 1,000 tongues. That's what I'm titling it. Now I double click on this and it brings me into the project. Let me zoom all the way out here and you can see this is what it looks like. So I've got multiple audio files here that are transitioning into each other. I'm going to go ahead and click the music here and delete that so that we don't have that playing in the background the whole time. But you saw that the music was down here. All my visual files are right here, and then my title is here. Since I'm still using files for Easter 6, I still want to be in the Easter 6 event. I'm going to clear that search field and I'm going to start inserting in place of the old image files, the new ones. So again, I'm going to use this blank slide as my opening slide. I click it, I'm going to drag right over here on top of this image. You can see that it outlines it in white a little bit. And it's going to give me a bunch of options. I can replace, replace from start, replace from end. If I click replace, what that does is it gives me automatically this 3-second long image. I need it to be a little bit longer than that, so I'm going to redo that. Command Z is your friend. That's undo. It goes back to where we were. You can see this is about 10.8 seconds. That's what I want. So I'm going to click, drag and drop. And I'm going to click replace from start. What that does is take my new file and make it just as long as the old one, which is what I want. Now remember, this has automatically got the Ken Burns effect. I want it to be crop to fill. Unfortunately, I've got to do that for every new image that I drop in here, unless I do want Ken Burns, but that's just part of the game. Now, here, let's go ahead and reset our title. It's already here. This is not Christ for the World We Sing, but Oh, for 1,000 tongues to sing. So number 184, African American Heritage Hymnal. Gotta spell it right. There we go. Now, because this is a duplicate file, it already had my preferred fonts in there. That's one of the great things about using a duplicate. You don't have to redo everything. Now, these individual image slides are where I have lyrics for the hymns. We've got, let's see, we have 4 verses, so I'm going to need to add one. But first I'm going to put my original image slides in. So I have titled these Tongues 1, 2, 3, and 4. So Tongues 1 goes here. Drag and drop, replace from start. Tongues 2 goes here. Drag and drop, replace from start. Tongues 3 here. Drag and drop, replace from start. And then Tongues 4, I'm going to need to add this in here. Remember, it's only 3.5 seconds. We'll expand that as we need to later. But I'm going to click, drag, and select all of these. And in one fell swoop, I can crop to fill, and I don't have that movement anymore. Just the transition from one slide to the next. Again, because this is a duplicate project, it already has my transitions in here. So I've got my standard cross fade or cross dissolve, whatever that one is, where it fades in. I use that between all of the lyric slides. See the transition there. And then This one is actually going to be fade to black because it used to be the last transition. Yeah, we want that cross dissolve. So again, back up to transitions here, cross dissolve. I can just drag that over the old one and it replaces it automatically. Then I'm going to drag in fade to black here. Great. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, go back to my media, tongues. This is going to be my audio file. So I can drag this down here and let's see what that sounds like. I like that timing pretty well. That's going to work just fine. Now, the rest of the work that I'm going to do here is just trimming, expanding, contracting the different image files so that they line up with each individual verse. That's pretty standard stuff, so I'm going to speed through that now. Okay, I've got my timing all set. The last thing I'm going to do is just fade in and out for the audio. One other thing that you need to know is to adjust the volume for an audio clip, you can use this horizontal bar here and drag up and down. Up. That would be really loud. Down. At 100% it was just fine. But there's another way to do this too. You would click on the file and go up way above your playback window, this one, and then this here, you can see down below, that's raising or lowering the volume back to 100%. It's just fine. So this video is ready to go. I do this a few times every week. All I have to do now is go back to projects. I've already titled it. I'm going to share this file, share this project as a file. It's got my old presets already in here. Click next. This is where I want it to go. Save. It's going to export that file. And soon I'll be ready to go. So now we're going to take a look at actually editing videos in iMovie. So far, we've mainly done still images along with audio, but of course you're going to be using iMovie to actually edit videos that you've already recorded that you're putting together into a final product. So of course, again, we're going to open up iMovie. The three ways to do that are to find the icon, to go to your Finder, or to use Command spacebar, and in this case, type in iMovie. So here we are in the project screen, and I'm going to edit the actual movie that you're watching now. I'm going to start putting it together so that you can see what it looks like. So in this case, I'm starting from scratch. I'm going to create a new movie. We've seen this before. The next step, as you know, is to create a new event for my project media to go in. So I'm going to click New Event here. Again, it gives you the date automatically. I'm going to retitle this Tutorial iMovie. Press Enter, and now I can import media. I already have a few videos saved. I'm going to pull those in now by clicking this arrow. And then I'm going to go find where they are. I have 3 here. I can click them individually, or I can hit Command A, select all of them, and import those here. So I believe I have them titled Tutorial 1, which I'm going to drag and drop here in the editing field. Tutorial 2, there it is there. And then Tutorial 3. Now I've got them all in order. So you can see here again in the editing field, they're lined up. There are no transitions or anything, but this Let's zoom in on this so you can see it a little bit better. This here, that little black bar, indicates that one clip is ending and another clip is beginning. I'm going to zoom back out here, not quite all the way, so that we can see there are again 3 levels. Here's your image level in the editor. Down here would be the audio if we had a separate audio track, but we don't in this case. The audio is built in to the video file. So if I put my cursor here and I press spacebar, my time here at St. Titus is wrapping up. You can hear the audio from that video. I can also again hit this play button. So I'm creating this tutorial for you. Either way, I can click the play or pause button, or I can press spacebar using iMovie and press it again to stop the playback. Your third register up top is where we put titles, and we will be doing that. I'll come back to that in a little bit. But one thing that I want you to see here is with this video file, you've got your audio there at the bottom. You can't quite see it as well, but you've got all your sound waves. You can tell when there's a break in the speech. So let me find a good long break. Here where my cursor is, you can see that there's no sound going on there. That's a good indication that there's a pause or the clip is over. Also, of course, here is your playback screen. Depending on where the cursor is, that will show you what is visible at that point in the video. And of course, if I hit play and actually editing, and I told you can see the action going on in the playback screen. Finally, up here, this is where our project media is. Click X there. Right now, we only have these 3 videos. I'm currently making tutorial video 4, and I'll go back in and add that in a little bit later. So just as with an image file, you can trim the length of a video file. So if I put my cursor at the end or the beginning of a clip, you'll get this new cursor here. You can click, hold down, move in and out. If I drag all the way to the right, you see that red bar. That tells me I can't make this clip any shorter. If I go back to the beginning here, you can see there's not a lot of lead in there, so I'm not really going to need to trim that. If I put my cursor here and I press spacebar for play. Hi folks, my name is Philip Zoutendam. You can hear that that video starts in almost right away, so I don't need to trim anything there. But if I go to the end of this clip and I press play here, you're going to hear a lot of dead air at the end to create videos for this week. So to get rid of that dead air, let me zoom in a little bit here. I'm just going to trim that to about right there. Most often when I'm creating videos for church, when one clip ends and a new clip begins, I'm going to add in a transition there. I think I showed you this before, but here are your transitions. Again, this is normally your media area, but if you click transitions, it gives you all these options that you can use. As I mentioned before, I almost always use either cross dissolve or fade to black. Let me put in cross dissolve here. It's just a drag and a drop, and we'll see what that looks like to create videos for this week. Okay, so now we're ready to start moving material. That was pretty seamless, actually. It doesn't always look like that, but because I was going from one clip here to another clip here that has essentially the same screen, you won't notice it. Let me put in cross blur here instead, and then you'll see a slightly different look. I can drag this right over the transition. It's going to give me that green plus mark, which lets me know I'm replacing the original transition with the new one. Now let's see what it looks like for this week. Okay, so now we're ready to start moving. That was a little bit laggy. It'll be smoother in the actual transition itself, but that's what it looks like there. Now, because I'm moving from one part of the tutorial to another there, what I'm actually going to do here is use 2 transitions, not just one, with a black background in the middle. So let's find fade to black. I'm going to replace that transition here. And now I'm going to add in a plain background in the middle and put a title over it. So I'm going to click Backgrounds, scroll down until I find black, drag and drop that in here, and then I can make this a little bit longer. I usually guess about 6 to 8 seconds. I'm going to make that 6 seconds. Go back to transitions. I'm going to use cross dissolve for my transition in. So here's what it looks like transitioning out of that first clip for this week. And here's what it looks like coming back into the next one. Okay, so now we're ready to start moving materials around and actually editing. So because I'm moving from one part of the tutorial to another here, this is a basic introduction and this is editing images. I'm going to add a title that will show over this black background. So I'm going to click Titles here, and you've got all sorts of options here. Feel free to explore these. I want something pretty simple. How about just plain old centered? I'm going to use this title here. Now, if I put that there, it automatically starts at about 4 seconds. I want this to run most of the length of this clip. So I'm going to extend or trim the title just like I would a normal video clip. Then I can click on title. It's going to give me some options here. I think this next clip is about editing still images. I'm fine with that. I don't really need a subtitle, so I'm going to get rid of that. And then Apple's default font in this title is Gill Sans Bold. I don't like that. I almost always use Helvetica New Bold. Its default also has this outline. I don't usually use that, so I'm going to get rid of that too. But here's what the new transition looks like for this week. Okay, so now we're ready. That's pretty basic. I don't usually do anything much fancier than that. I might make this a little bit shorter in this case. You see how the title effect already kind of naturally fades in and fades out. That's standard Apple user friendliness. I'm quite satisfied with that. Let's leave it there. One other thing that you ought to know about, though, is if you want to bring an image in, you can put a black background in between clips. You can also do something called an overlay. So if I go back to backgrounds here, I'm going to drag this black background over the top of the video clip here. I can extend it a little bit, and you'll see this is basically going to butt in over the video file. The audio is still running, the clip is still running, but what you'll see is the black background. It automatically gives you the date. I'm going to rename this Easter 6 because that's the content I'll be working with. Now that's not really helpful in this immediate case, and especially if I want to pause there, it's much better to put the background in between two clips than over the top, because then you can control precisely how long that background is there and you've got silence. But I've used this overlay before, for instance, in sermons. If I know that I'm pre-recording my own sermon and I can go back in and edit it later, if there's an image that I'm referring to, say an icon, I've done this before, I would find that image. Let's just pick one at random. Say I wanted this image and this was what I was referring to in my sermon. Well, then I can use that as an overlay. It's as simple as drag and drop. You see these little blue dots up here? That controls fade in and fade out. So you can play around with that. Here's what it would look like. Just imagine this is a sermon. I'm talking about this particular painting. Click on this and then actually use the 2-finger click to create a new event. That gives you this option. Well, that's pretty cool. You don't use that very often, but it's nice to know that it's there. I'm only bringing that up because that's another way to get an image or even a plain background into the middle of a video clip. I reviewed this clip a little bit earlier and I realized I had to repeat myself a couple of times. And so now I'm going to show you what you do if you have a video clip that you need to cut things out of. If you need to split a clip and splice a couple together, you're going to use a couple of tools for that. So I found the spot that I want to cut out. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. It's right here where my cursor is. So I need to make a split here in the clip. There are a couple ways to do that. One, I can use my two-finger click or the right click if you have a mouse, and you can click split clip. Now I've got two clips together there, and I know that the next part I want to bring in starts here, so I'm going to go here and split that clip again, and I can just click on the middle. This is all the stuff I want to get rid of, and just press delete. Now we can transition from one to the other. And then what I'm going to do is create a new event. Here's how you create a new event. Perfect. One other way to split a clip is to click where you want to split in your cursor. And often your little toolbar on the new MacBooks that show different buttons depending on what you're doing will have a little button that you can press actually right above your keyboard that says split. There's also a keyboard command, so you could hit Command B if you want to, but you'll figure out how to do that, whatever your preferred way is. Now you see again, there's that little black bar in the middle indicating I've got two clips joined together. I can now, because there's a gap there, come in and put a transition here. So here's what that would look like. And then what I'm going to do is create a new event. Here's how you create a new event. That's okay, but honestly it looked fine without it. So I'm going to click on that transition and hit delete. I'm quite satisfied with how this looks. And then what I'm going to do is create a new event. Here's how you create a new... Perfect. That works just fine for me. One other thing that's going to be useful for you to know is how to edit audio that's already attached to a movie clip. This functions much the same way as detached audio functions. You've got your volume bar here. So if I put my cursor over that bar, it gives me these two arrows. I can click and move up and move down and adjust my volume that way. Of course, your standard setting is 100%. If you go all the way up here, right, if I increase the audio to 400%, it's giving me all these yellows and reds underneath actually, which is a bad sign. So you're only adjusting this volume if it looks like it's too loud, or if it's way down here and you need it to be a little bit louder, you can pull it up there. There's one other place you can do this actually. If I click on this whole video clip, I can go up here to my playback screen, and if I hold my mouse over here, you can see that says volume. If I click on that, then I get this volume control here. So you can see as I move this slider, the volume goes up and down. I can go all the way up to 400%, which is not a great amount here. That's going to sound really loud. I won't even play that for you. I'm just going to go back to 100%, which looked fine here. Another thing you can do to edit the audio is actually go over here. This is the noise reduction and equalizer tool. Let me click that. Now, this is especially handy if you've got a clip that has a bunch of background noise for whatever reason, or maybe someone was recording themselves from a distance and their voice is a little bit muted and you can hear the HVAC hum in the background. There are all sorts of preset equalizer settings here. If I click on this drop-down menu, I can do all this stuff here. Often what I'm using is either voice enhance, or if it's a music clip, maybe I'll use music enhance. Now, be prepared if you use one of those, it's likely to bring up the volume on your clip dramatically. So you might first go to, say, Voice Enhance. You can see that that brought my volume up here. So I'm going to bring that volume back down a little bit, the total volume, going back here to my volume tab, click and drag until I'm not getting those yellows and reds, right? I'm going to click Reset All because there was no problem to begin with, but now you see that tool. Remember, this is titled Noise Reduction and Equalizer, this tab right here. This is a really handy tool. Say you're recording someone, I've done this before, I was recording scripture readings outdoors, and the bird noise just sounds like it's deafening. Or maybe you're recording indoors, and again, you've got that HVAC hum. You can use this tool, click Reduce Background Noise and adjust. And what that'll do is do a pretty good job of getting rid of that background noise that's not either the music or the voice you're recording. Be careful with this though. I don't really recommend using more than about 30%, certainly not more than 50%, because it changes how the clip sounds. So test that out before you use it, but know that it's here. Finally, one other tool that's up here, not actually related to audio, but helpful to know about, is this video stabilization tool. It's this tab right here. Again, you can click this box here and then adjust the amount that you want. This is helpful if someone's recorded, say, a clip at home with a handheld iPhone, and they always think they're going to hold it stable, but never are we quite as still as we think we are. And so often you'll see a lot of shifting around where you can use this tool. It's not going to eliminate that, but it will certainly stabilize it to a certain extent. And you'll run a much lower risk of making your audience dizzy with that. Now, I'm not anywhere near done with this video. I've got to go through and do a lot of cutting and splicing. You can see here I've stopped and started a couple of times. Let's say I was finished with this video. Well, then I would click this button here to go back to the project screen. I need to title this. It's not going to let me out of here without giving it a title, so I'm going to call it Tutorial iMovie. Click OK. And then there it is. There's my project. So if I were finished with it, again, I would click this three-dot button here, click Share Project, and either make a file for YouTube and Facebook or just the file itself. Again, I'm usually using 720p here. That's a slightly lower resolution, slightly lower quality, but still pretty good. That's just going to make my file smaller. So if this were a 1080p or even 4K, if that's your highest resolution, high def, look at that file, 18 gigabytes. That's way too big. I really need this to be 720p. That's already a pretty big file. And then I would click Next, and again, you're going to want to plug in your computer and let it run while you're doing something else, because it takes a lot of your computer's energy to finalize one of these, but we're not there yet. That's a wrap on my own tutorial, but one piece of advice that I'll leave you with is if there's something not covered here that you need to know how to do, or you want a better, more experienced teacher, or for whatever reason you need to learn something new about iMovie, you can Google just about anything and find tutorials on the internet that are going to help you understand and use iMovie better. So if you ever have a question about iMovie and you don't know how to find the answer, literally just type your question into Google, do the best that you can, or maybe go straight to YouTube and see what you can find there. I guarantee you there are people that can teach you way more than you'll ever need to know about iMovie on YouTube and elsewhere on the internet. So fear not, there are easy ways to learn. It's as simple as typing it in a search field and tracking down the answer that you need. I hope this has been a helpful tutorial. I hope that this serves St. Titus and whatever other churches or organizations come across it. And best of luck.